Program. Let's hear some clapping. Let's get excited about Tony coming into the room, and let's welcome.
They went crazy. How you all doing? How you all doing out there, Dreamforce? Thank you. Please grab a seat. So after that introduction by Mark, we have a lot of history together, and I'm very grateful for the kind words he said. I have had the privilege of interacting with him, knowing him indirectly for about 25 years, and certainly directly for the last 15 years of this journey. And it's so amazing to watch Dreamforce grow from 1,300 people to 135,000, 5 million people online. This man has created like a festival. It's like a music festival for geeks. Excuse me, I mean techies. We're all techies, right? And it's pretty amazing. Can we have a hand for Mark for this creation he's done here called Dreamforce? It's truly amazing. And what touches me most about Mark is his commitment to really find a way to add value. We all know in this room, there's only one way you succeed long term. Anybody can get lucky, do something for a period of time, but real success in any measure whatsoever comes when you do more for others than anybody else. There's no other way to do it. You find a way to add more what? Value. And if we find the way to add more value, we can be superior in the marketplace, but we can also be superior in our own lives. We can enjoy our lives at a different level. We can have a different set of pride that isn't fake. It's not ego. Ego is when you try to make it better than it is, and you know the truth is it's not. But when you really are in a position, when you're in a position where you own what you're about, and you know what you're here to deliver, and you deliver it on a significant scale, then you have an opportunity to really experience not only success, but fulfillment. And this conference has gotten bigger and bigger, not only in its size, but also in its impact. And so I'm really privileged to be back with you here. And I know you're working to raise 1 million meals. And I'm very, very into hunger, to say the least, primarily because I was so hungry at a stage of my life. And my life was completely changed because when I was 11 years old, we had no money and no food. And we got used to that, but it was Thanksgiving, which makes it more emotional. And my parents were saying and doing things that after you say them, you can never take them back. And it was very profoundly painful, obviously, for myself as the oldest and trying to keep my brothers and sisters from hearing it. But it profoundly changed me because that day something changed my life, and it was somebody simply coming and delivering food. And it wasn't the person, wasn't giving it, it was a delivery guy. And it wasn't a happy moment for my father. It was interesting. My mom and dad are yelling at each other. My mom's saying things to my father, you haven't taken care of us. Pretty painful moment. And the door happens, and I go to open the door, and there's this tall guy standing there with these big bags of food, and on the ground beside him he had this pan with an uncooked turkey. And he said, "Is your father here?" And I said, "Just one moment." And I sprinted to get my dad, thinking this was going to be the most euphoric moment you could possibly imagine. Like God had come by and surprised us, somebody cared about us, whatever you wanted to frame it. And my father came to the front door begrudgingly. When he saw the man, he got very angry. And he said, "We don't take charity." And he went to slam the door. And the man was a very tall guy, and he put his arm or shoulder against it. It kind of bounced off of him. And he said, "Sir, this is not charity. Everybody has tough times. And somebody knows you're in need, and they want you to have a beautiful Thanksgiving. Please accept this gift." My father got even more intense and started saying, "I don't accept charity." And this time the man put his foot there and it bounced off of it. And then he said something to my father that I thought my father would hit him. He looked at me now where technology is happening so rapidly. It's magnificent what it does for our lives. But we all know with that technology, our psychology is not developing as rapidly. And as a result, the world's changing. And a lot of us that have learned to engage with technology and use it to maximize, most people in this room. But there's lots of people who use technology to disengage, to be harmful to themselves and to other people. It's not a one-way street. So I'm interested in how to maximize the psychology side, and that's why I'm sharing this with you, so you can increase both your leadership skill, but who do you have to lead first to be effective, my friends? Who? Yourself. And so good to see what's controlling you. Well, what I'm focusing on is controlling me. You can focus on something and make yourself crazy. You can focus on something and make yourself great. Angry, pissed off, and guilty. If you have nothing, I live in Fiji a portion of the time. I have a home there and a resort there and kind of 2 families of villages there that I interact with the last 25 years. And when you go to Fiji and you walk down the street or you drive by, people jump up and they yell, "Bula, bula, bula," which means welcome, be happy, we love you. And you drive by 5 minutes later and they jump up, "Bula, bula, bula." And you're going like, what drugs are they taking? No one's paying them. But they're so happy. They're in such a different state. They've learned to focus on something else and come up with a different meaning for life. But if the meaning is it's the end, if the meaning is that you're dissing me, if the meaning is you don't care, whatever meaning we come up with, that affects the third decision, which is what am I going to do? And what people do is based on the meaning, because the meaning creates emotion, right? You can be miserable no matter what you have, and you can be euphoric having nothing. We all know it's true. In fact, is it possible to learn to let, for example, all hell could be breaking loose around you, and you could just be sitting in a chair in this centered space, all hell breaking loose, and you could still feel great? Is that possible? Yes or no? Yes or no? Sure, but you and I live in a Western culture. Well, if you sit and bliss out, people come and take your furniture. So we have to be good at not only controlling the internal world, but our external world. And that's shaped by what we do. And what people do is based on their emotions and also their role models. So I thank you, Mark, and I thank all of you that are role models for people, where you show people that success does not mean taking, that success can mean truly growing and giving. That money, resources, and opportunity are things to be shared. They're things that are tools for a quality of life that you're able to enhance for people and for yourself and your family. Pretty beautiful thing. My father that day decided what to do was, if I failed and I've been worthless to my family, I must leave. And he did. And to me, it was the worst day of my life. I'll never forget it. I loved him more than anything. I had 4 fathers. He's the one I finally got attached to. I was like, Mom, I'm confused. But then finally, years later, I got the benefit of it, because out of all those experiences and all that pain, that day I made 3 different decisions. First decision is I just decided to focus on something different than him, and that's the power we have. We get to decide what to focus on, and my decision number 1 is I want to focus on the fact there's food. What a concept. Pretty cool. But the most powerful thing to change my life was meaning. I said, what does this mean? Pulled up this little tiny building, really tiny, knocked on the door, and when I knocked on the door, this little woman opened the door. It's probably half my size, which is not hard. I'm 6'7", so she's like 5'2". And she looked up at me like this, and she saw the groceries, and she screamed. And she started grabbing my head and pulled it down and kissed me. I was like, no, 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 delivery boy, delivery boy. And she goes, no, God gift, God gift, God gift. And she didn't speak English, so I handed her the note. She read the note, she crying again, started trying to kiss me again. I said, no, no. She goes, God gift, God gift. So I pointed, where do I put this? In this tiny little room. There's a table there, I put the food down, and I went over to get some more groceries. And when I did, 4 children come running out. And one hits my leg and wouldn't let go. And when they saw the pumpkin pie, it was over. And it was one of the most emotional experiences of my life, because first of all, this little boy just wouldn't let go. And I delivered this food, and this woman was crying and smiling. And I stayed there just to take it in for a few minutes, seeing them all. It was like going back in time. And then as I went to go leave, I couldn't speak Spanish, and she was like trying to say something in Spanish. I didn't know what to say, and it was Thanksgiving, so I said, Feliz Navidad. It's like, I heard the song, okay? And she laughed and laughed. She's crying and laughing. One of the more beautiful experiences of life, isn't it? And you can have both those experiences in your body simultaneously. And I remember I got in the van, and all the 4 kids were sitting on the bench here, and she's standing there waving, and I pulled and go in reverse, and I looked in the mirror, and as I looked in the mirror, I saw these kids there, and I saw Mom crying and smiling still, and then I lost it. I started crying uncontrollably. And I'm like trying to put the thing in gear, through tears come through my eyes, and I thought to myself, what? I mean, this is a beautiful thing. Why am I crying? And then I realized what a gift that day was. I realized that my worst day of my life was my best day. And my goal for you, if you don't already have it, my guess is you've already done it, knowing where you are in your world today. But maybe your second worst day, it's time to make a best day. Because out of every tragedy, out of every pain, it only gets healed when we find a deeper meaning. When we find there's a higher purpose in it. And I realized I wouldn't have been there that day. I wouldn't have that hunger to help somebody else if I hadn't had the hunger in my own soul at one point missing. So it's very personal to me. And I want to thank all of you that made the contributions. And I told Mark, and I've announced that I'm going to match the 1 million meals if you hit it. And I'm sure as hell expecting that you will. And so we'll get 2 million. And when I told that, then Mark said, I'll match that. 1 million, we're going to do 3 million here. So that's the way to play the game, I think. Just raise the game together. And so I'm excited about what that possibility is. And I'm personally also, November 18th, I'm going to feed 50 million people. I've fed 42 million in my life. And the reason I tell you this, and I'll get off the soapbox, but I want you to just think about what's going to create meaning for you. Because money by itself won't do it. But impact will. And impact can be with your own child, spending more time with it. It doesn't have to be anything to do with contribution any other way. You can contribute to your own family. But contribution is what makes us feel fully alive. And I'm doing that because, I don't know if you're aware of it, but a year ago, last summer, Congress cut the budget for what was traditionally called food stamps by $8.7 billion. By the way, $8.7 billion is the equivalent of every family they support going without food for 1 week a month for 12 months out of the year. And all the nonprofits are trying to support that. So I'm partnering with Feeding America, and I started writing this book, and I thought, I'm gonna donate all the profits of the book. I'll feed 10 million people. And then I was like, that's not enough. And I thought, well, I'll get matching donations. And I'll raise the bar, I'll get 20 million. And as time has gone by, I finally decided I'm gonna do 50 million myself, and I'm looking to raise 100 million, and that's in addition to the million I'm doing here. That's not part of it. So if you want help, you're welcome to, and Feeding America is my partner, and we're working for matching funds to get to 100 million people. I'm already to 67 million just with some friends of mine before we even launch it. But it's a goal, and it's, why do we do it? I don't actually do it because it's a heavy or something. I do it because you can. Do it because it's fun. Do it because research shows that when it comes to money, buying things will never make you happy. Never. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have some nice things. I have some nice things, I'm sure you do too. But it's not gonna give you happiness. Buying experiences can make you happy, by the way. People who say money doesn't matter, they don't know where to shop. Because there's some experiences you can buy that are extraordinary. Who's got some experiences, some trips, some things you've done with family or friends that will live with you for years? Who knows what I'm talking about here, right? Those things, that money can be a really valuable tool there. If you can find enough add value and have money and do those experiences, how cool. I'll tell you what else money research shows will do. People always say money doesn't matter once you get to a certain level. No, it matters that you can spend $5 a month and have more emotional juice, and it can be measured all the way down into your saliva by hormonal changes. You want to use money, not let money use you. And so another thing that'll do it is getting rid of drudgeries. Who here loves to pay for shit you don't want to do? Right? Cleaning the toilet. Who likes to have someone else be able to do that if at all possible, right? Because once you do that, those drudgeries are gone. What do you get to do? You have time. And with time, you can spend more time with your passions, the things that matter for you that you can do in the world, that share in the world. And the third thing that gives people the most enjoyment on money, just so you know, is actually giving it away. And nobody believes that until you do it. Now, if you don't give a dime out of a dollar, you're not going to give 100 million out of $1 billion ever. Don't kid yourself. It's the place to start wherever we are. And if you do, I think you can find there's enormous enjoyment in that process. And I think you also find that if there's somebody you love, you do something for, it's even more. So that's why I'm here. And I want to now make sure in the time that you're here, let's kick this in gear and let's talk about 3 things that can truly change the quality of your life. Number 1, first of all, if you make new decisions about the focus on, try this just for a moment. Just for a second, take a deep breath in. Exhale and give it a moan. That was really pathetic. Let's try that again. Deep breath in, then make it a sexual moan and thoroughly enjoy it. Oh, that was much longer and deeper. I like that. That was good. One more time. Use deep breath in and give it a moan. Now, one of the things that I want to talk to you about here tonight, this afternoon, is really simple. And that is, everyone here is in business, and there's a problem that all businesses have. We're in the most competitive environment we've ever been in. We went from, 500 million people being online to a couple billion people being online. And in the next 4 years, they're saying we're going to have 3 billion more online. That means this entire world is a bigger market. If you're the person that adds more value, it also means you're going to have more competitors than you've ever seen in your life. How many think the economic world that we're in today is going to stay the way it is? Raise your hand. Okay, one man on drugs, there's always one. Okay. How many think that the economic environment's going to go through seasons? We're going to have some more ups and downs as we adjust to what's happening in the world here. Say, I. Well, then if we know that, our goal, you and I as leaders, should be to anticipate that. In fact, everyone in this room is a leader of something, whether you're the leader of the company or whether you're a leader of a department or whether you're a parent or hopefully you're a leader, not a follower. If you're a leader, you've got to exercise that skill. And so I want to talk to you about that and one of the most important skills of that. But most people don't exercise that leadership because they're dropping behind in their skill sets. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. How many of you in this room, I want an honest answer, and I'd like you to yell the answer, raise your hand if you would, please. How many of you in this room have ever experienced the absolute total humiliation of playing a video game against a child? Scream I if you've done this experience. Oh, come on, let me hear you. What happens when you play the child? Who always wins? Come on, who wins? Always. Why? Is it because they're faster? Is it they're smarter? They're younger? Their neurons are functioning at a quicker tempo? Here's how it usually works. You're a mother or father, you're an uncle or an aunt, your grandfather or grandmother, you're a friend of the family, you're looking for a gift. We live in a tech world, in a world where today children play with an iPad and learn how to use it before they know how to tie their shoes. How different is that world? I was with Mark yesterday with his daughter for her 6-year-old birthday, and we're talking about things, and she's got these Legos, and a friend of ours says, oh, my 6-year-old goes on the iPad, searches on YouTube for videos on how to build cool stuff using Legos and starts to study how to build all these structures. That's the world we're in, that our kids are in at 6 years old. And imagine what else they're searching for and finding at 6 years old. It's a wild, wild world. So here we are with this technology, and most of us are not seeing what it's doing for us. So you sit down with this child who's high tech, you're not. Even the techies in this room aren't usually as gamers. I know there are plenty of gamers in the room, but there's plenty of not. And what does the child do? The child says, oh, come on. You go, look, I'm not good at this. This is for you. Come on, uncle. Come on, auntie. Come on, mom. Come on, dad. It's my birthday. It's Christmas. They use the guilt approach, don't they? And what do you find? You finally break down. Okay. Now you should know you're being set up when they go, you go first. Right? And they go, look, it's really simple. You just shoot. You just shoot these guys and it all drops down. And you think, okay, I'm going to show this little bastard I can do a thing or two here, right? Take out the gun, you're and you're dead in 2.3 seconds. Whose experience is? Say I. Now what happens to the child? And about 45 minutes later, you get your second turn. Am I right? And then you're really pissed. You're dedicated, you're devoted, you're focused, smart person. We're all smart, but it's easy to get led astray by everybody else's focus, isn't it? And then all of a sudden let them create the meaning for us. And then all of a sudden we're settling for a life far less than what we desire or deserve. So my approach is really simple. My approach is to say, let's you and I, just for a few little time we have here, and by the way, this to me is a little time, a couple hours, 2.5 hours, I guess, at this stage. Because kind of the minimum length of seminar I do is 50 hours, 50. And you go, are you kidding me? I don't like to hear myself talk. I like to see people do things so often they build muscle, not just thoughts. And so one thing I'm going to ask you to do in a few minutes is we're going to go from this passive mode that you're in right now into full engagement. Because if you get fully engaged, it's amazing what you can accomplish and do. When you're partially engaged, you get a little bit of result. When you're disengaged, we all know what you get, nothing. And we live in a society where most of us are so overwhelmed. There's so much information. We're not having any problem with information. We're drowning in information, but we're starving for wisdom. And so we got to separate it out. And so one way to separate it out is I'd like to talk to you about 3 things that can help you increase your performance and your life. Because what I'm obsessed by and have been for 37 years is what can increase performance for an individual or an organization. But also I'm equally obsessed about what's going to make somebody fulfilled. Because who's had this horrible experience? Who here has ever achieved your goal and then your brain said, is this all there is? Who's had this experience here? Say I. And that's worse than failing. At least when you fail, your brain can say, I can figure this out and do it again a new way. But when you succeed and you're miserable, you're basically technically screwed. So what I want to make sure that you and I do is we set ourselves up to be able to win. So there's 3 things I'd like to walk you through. 1, I'd like to walk you through how to the competitive edge that's going to get you both the performance you want at the highest level, and also the fulfillment you want. Because if you want to know my view, I can tell you there's 2 master lessons in life. Lesson 1 is the science of achievement. If you want an extraordinary life, if you want a magnificent life, which by my definition has nothing to do with me, it's life on your terms. Some of you, what's an extraordinary life? It's having a cool little company. For some of you, it's having a big billion-dollar company. For some of you, it's not a company, it's 3 wonderful children that you totally love and adore and spend time with. For some of you, it's poetry. For some of you, it's making a difference in the environment. It's different for all of us. It's life on your terms. But if you're gonna have an extraordinary life, you need to master, number 1, the science of achievement, which most of you are damn good at or you wouldn't be in this room, right? You know how to go from where you are, have a vision, make it real. Speeding that up, that's my business. And when Mark talked about it, he actually showed me the other day, we were together a couple days ago, and he showed me the very first day he did his V2 Mom, which is really a simple way of saying, what do you really want? What's your vision? And your values is, why do you want it? And walking through the obstacles and the solutions and strategies to get where you want to go. And he showed me on the back of an American Express bill where they designed on the very first day, Salesforce. And there you see that day where he engaged. He engaged in his vision instead of settling for a life that someone else had designed. He had a great life, extraordinary life. Top guy at Oracle, working for one of the most brilliant people on the face of the earth. Can you imagine how hard it would be to leave there and start something from scratch? But he had something larger that he wanted. So how do you do that? How do you get yourself there? You gotta understand the science of achievement. But I know so many people I get the call from, most successful in the world, business person, politician, leader of some sort, economic leader, financial trader, and they call me up and they want me to change something in their business, but I know what they really want. They really want to find fulfillment still. Because Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Who's with me on this, right? You make everybody else feel great. I mean, it's a horrible example. I hate it, but we all know an extraordinary spirit that took his own life just recently, probably lit up more human beings in life, and that's the power of engagement. All of these are tied to engagement. And I'll tell you what triggered me on this, is thinking about how could I add the most value here? And engagement is one of those, new flash words in the corporate culture we all hear about, full engagement, partial engagement. But it's really true, engagement plays such a huge role, and some of the studies that are out right now are mind-boggling. Have you seen the recent studies that they've done? 142 countries, asking workers around the world, how would you describe yourself? Fully engaged, partially engaged, disengaged, aggressively disengaged. And guess what they found out? Throw it up there. Around the world, in 142 countries, they found out that 13% of employees worldwide said they were actually engaged in their work. Now, for us in this room, you'd say that's absurd, there's something wrong with the survey. Well, you'd be right. In a room like this, it's full engagement, or at least a lot fuller engagement. America has the highest engagement of any country in the world, it's 29%, which sounds so much better when you hear 13. So which would you rather have, a punch in the face or a kick in the stomach? But let's flip that around and say, what does that really mean? It means 71% of people are disengaged at work in the richest, most powerful, most influential country in the world. It's mind-boggling. Now, if it's only one study, you'd say, it was a partial, but you can see study after study coming up with similar numbers, slightly off, but pretty much the same ratios. Now, here's what's really interesting. Of those 71%, there's a group in there, about 24% of them, that are actively disengaged. You know what that means? That means they hate what they do and they hate you. Now, this is pretty important, isn't it? They hate what they do, they hate you, and they will actively work to disempower the organization. Who has ever bumped into one of these humans? Raise your hand, say I. Okay, so when you bump into these humans, it's not usually a pleasant experience, and we all know they're out there. And by the way, how much damage can they do in a world that has, social media everywhere, where good news travels fast and bad news travels faster, and people don't care what the truth is afterwards. It's a cool story, it makes it go. So this is an area that if you're going to change your business, you got to make a difference. So here's what I'm looking at. What makes the difference in people? What makes the difference in an organization? And I would submit to you that it isn't getting a head start. You can find individuals who you give everything to. You can love on them, give them a great education, they get a great economic background, and can spend the rest of their life going in and out of rehab. Who's seen this before, knows what I'm talking about? Say I. On the other hand, you see people that life's kicked in the face, somebody's been abused mentally, emotionally, physically, you name it, and they become the Oprahs of the world. So it's certainly not, advantage does not come because you were given something. And by the way, in business, advantage doesn't come because you have most resources. Companies with most resources don't win. The most resourceful companies win. The most resourceful companies are the ones where employees are the most engaged. And it's statistically proven. You look around and you say, who had the lead? Well, before YouTube, there was Vimeo. They had a year jump. Pretty much the same technology, just didn't engage as many people. Before Google, there was, what happened, Yahoo? If you're out there, what the hell happened to you people? Right? Before Facebook, there was, what happened to MySpace? Facebook was more engaging. Engagement is really the new factor. Being able to be fully engaged. And by the way, in your intimate relationship, how important is engagement? Some guys go, very important, I want to put it off as long as I can. No, I don't mean that. Full engagement in that area is going to determine the level of fulfillment you have or don't have in a relationship, right? The more engaged somebody feels that you are with them, the more energy you have, the more connection you have, the more aliveness you have. So part of what I'd like to experiment with here is kind of discover what creates engagement for real with you, what creates disengagement, because these are huge factors. Because if you understand what they are, your level of performance, your level of results, your level of leadership, your level of joy will change very, very radically. Who's with me that engagement is not just a term, but something that can make a difference in your body? Let me see a show of hands, say I. Now, I'm asking for your hand raised for some engagement. Because here's what research shows. If you listen to me passively as I'm talking here, guess what? Within a month, if you just listen, sit passively, which most of you are doing, there's nothing wrong with it, it's what you've been doing your whole life, what you've been taught to do, you'll remember about 10% of what I say 2 months from now, which basically means you wasted your time today and I wasted mine. 10%. How many came here because you want to learn something, do something, change something, make something stronger or better? Say I. If that's true, then if all you do is take notes, which I don't see anyone barely doing, Oh, thank you very much, a few of you. I stand corrected. Then nudge the people on either side. What's wrong with you, bitch? Come on, where's the notes? Right? Because I don't know anybody who's got that great a memory. In my entire life, I've kept journals. Because here's what I learned early on. Writing it down, if I never look back and read it again, the physical act of writing it down drives the grooves deeper. Repetition is the mother of skill. You look at anyone who's masterful, why are they masterful? Why can LeBron James do what he can do? Because he's done it a few million times, right? You know, Kobe will go out and make 300 shots before he will leave that floor every day. 300 shots. The same freaking activity. Most people in tech world, oh, I heard that story, I know that thing, oh yeah. If you're not doing it, you don't know shit. You understand. And understanding in $3 will almost get you a Starbucks. If you're gonna master something, you need to get the repetition where you get it in your body and you bring emotion to it, and enough motion, enough repetition, it gets in your body, and now it becomes physical mastery where you don't think about it and you just do it. Mastery is tying your shoes. Most of you can do this, chew on some gum, send a text simultaneously. Not some people leave their tongue out while they're doing it, but you get the idea. If you do something enough and you're confident enough, you're certain enough it's in your body, that's mastery. So I'd like to see if we couldn't get to a different level of mastery in this. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is, by the way, if you listen and take notes, just write those notes down or you type them in, whatever you do. Research shows you'll retain about 40 to 50% of what's been said. For the future, I'd highly engage or encourage you to do that. Now might be a good time. And then the third most powerful one is if you physically engage your body. If we ask you a question, yell back the answer, or in a few minutes, I'm gonna ask you to actively engage in a different level, engage with each other, do some crazy things you wouldn't normally do. What that does, it brings up engagement, 80-90% retention, because now it's not just a thought or a right, it's a feeling in your body as well. And if you do that, you're gonna retain it. Who's up for doing more and holding on to more? Say, Then to do that, I'm gonna ask a couple things. One is if I ask you a question, please yell out the answer. You're already doing that, you're being very kind, but don't be kind anymore. Do it with more passion and intensity. Because I'm not gonna ask you questions you don't know the answer to, because I want you to feel good about yourself. But if you yell out the answer, you'll activate your body's nervous system. Make sense? And the more you activate, the more energy you'll have. We live in a passive society, and if we're gonna engage, by the way, the companies that engage, the companies that have records of 24 to top 25% in the country, highest levels of engagement of employees, companies like Google, companies like Salesforce, companies like Apple, companies like Facebook. And by the way, guess what all the research shows? 22% more profitability, almost one for one. For every percentage of increased engagement, you almost get an increase of profitability. But I would argue you get that in your personal life as well. The more engaged you are, the more the other person will become engaged. You want to get somebody engaged? You get engaged. Think about it. Everyone in this room is a leader. What's our job to do as a leader? Our job is maximize resources, right? How do we take whatever resource and get more out of it? Ourselves, other people, our economics, our business, our technology. That's the job of a leader. But you can't maximize resources if you don't have full engagement. So I'd like to see if we could increase that. And so one simple way of doing that, increasing that engagement, is to start with us. Because by the way, are you going to engage other people if you're not engaged? Yes or no? Yes or no? Are you going to be able to touch other people if you're not touched? Are you going to move other people if you're not moved? And so, by the way, here's the problem. How many of you wake up you have certain days you wake up and you think to yourself, today, I don't want to talk to any people. Who in this room has days like this where you don't want to talk to anybody here? Say, I. Oh, come on, say with some energy, I. But as a professional, you got to do that most times. And if you fake it, do people feel it? So I want to show you some ways to change it. But here's the reward of engagement. If you can become a person and engage others, you will now become an extraordinary leader, not a mediocre or good one. As far as I'm concerned, good is the enemy of great, as corny as it sounds. So think about it. I'll give you an example of this book that I did. I did this book because back in 2008, I felt like I was back in my childhood. Everybody around me was suffering. And I hate suffering. Most of the skills I develop is because I want to take somebody that's suffering and take them to a place where they have joy and aliveness and health and vitality and abundance or whatever I can do to help. And so I've got the guy that cuts my hair, my barber is like, his kid can't go to college, he's lost half of what he's got to do. A billionaire client of mine is no longer a billionaire, and he's feeling equally bad, he thinks, but suffering is suffering in somebody's mind, right? And so I thought to myself, something's got to be done. And then like most of us, somebody's going to do something. In 2010, when things actually got worse and the system wasn't changed, I started reading everything I could read, started watching everything I could watch, and I watched a documentary called Inside Job. Anybody here see Inside Job? If you didn't see it, it was Matt Damon did the documentary on it, and it won the Academy Award. And it actually walked through systematically and showed how the entire world economic experience, our entire economy as a world, was almost destroyed by a few people, and they identified who they were, how they did it, they documented it all, and then they showed what happened to them. And what happened to them, does anybody know? No, not nothing. Nothing would have been a reward compared to what they should have got. They were actually put in charge of the turnaround. And they were given your money and mine. We were taxed so they could put their money back where it belonged. So at the end of this film, depending upon your personality, if you haven't seen it, I should warn you, you'll have one or two reactions. You'll either be very depressed or very pissed. I was on the piss side. I was so angry, and I thought to myself, nothing's been done. This is insane. And something's got to be done. I thought, everybody says something can be done, but what can I do? And I thought, you know what? I've got access. For 21 years, most people think I'm a happy, bouncing around, positive thinking, screaming guy on an infomercial from 20 years ago, but I have continued to grow. Not taller, hopefully.